Ladies and gentlemen, back on the Unlaced podcast. A very different episode this week. One of the first that hopefully there's more of many to come, because we did run a bit of a survey for some feedback on how we can make the show a bit better. One of my sort of goals when I started this podcast was not to just always talk about soccer, because obviously it's something I do know very well, but I know that everyone likes to hear a lot about different sports, and it also intrigues me to talk to other athletes. But funnily enough, one of the common feedback or feedbacks that we got from you guys was that you want more soccer content. So I've taken that on board, and I thought, what better time to maybe do a bit of a mini episode and really narrow in on the sport when it is arguably the biggest week in the game this week from a domestic point of view, but also a global point of view. Now, domestically, it is because the A-League, the grand final, is this Saturday, Melbourne City versus Western United, and also the biggest club game you can play in the world in the Champions League final against Liverpool against Real Madrid, which is going to take place on Saturday night in Europe, Sunday morning in Australia, in Paris. So we're going to dissect both these games. We're going to do a bit of a preview on the upcoming games and go through them now. Before we get into the Champions League, I do want to talk the A-League, because that is the first game coming up. And it has been a pretty difficult season in the A-League, I would say, for a range of reasons. Obviously, there's still some components that we would love to see around the league to make it better in regards to getting some more people into the games, getting more promotion and marketing across what's going on, and also the access around the viewership and trying to drive those numbers up and get it back to what it used to be, because it was really flying and booming at one point. The quality in the league has been quite good this year. I feel the young players coming through, so many players are getting moves to Europe, which is a massive stepping stone, and also a big compliment to the A-League. That's what this league's for. This is where we grow our homegrown talent, and for future Socceroos, we rely on a big part of them coming through the A-League. Very few can go to Europe at a young age, like Tim Cahill and Harry Kewell, and actually graft a career out with not having to start in Australia. So that is some of the positives. But anyway, coming into the finals, it was very interesting because there was a couple components of what I thought was going to make for an interesting finals campaign. One was that Melbourne Victory was on about a 16-game unbeaten streak. Now, that was remarkable considering Western United were leading most of the year. Melbourne City were going on a bit of a downward spiral coming into the finals. They lost their last few games. And really got a big sort of romping by Melbourne Victory in the Melbourne Derby, which kind of questioned where they were headed. They kind of did pick themselves back up and dust off in the Asian Champions League when they went and had their group games, which they were undefeated in and did really well. So it's no surprise that Melbourne City is in the grand final because they are a super team. They did win the minor premiership, and the expectation with their team on paper is that they probably should be there. What was interesting, though, also is Adelaide United. Now, Adelaide, for me, has probably been one of the teams of the season, along with Melbourne Victory. The reason is because I don't think Adelaide should have been where they were. They had a lot of young players. They do have some very good players in Craig Goodwin, Isaias, and a couple of their other Spanish defensive stocks. But I just felt with the amount of youth they've had to get to a semi-final and put on a performance like they did against Melbourne City and really lose by, a kick of the ball in the last minute or in the extra time period was a big compliment to them. And they are going to be an exciting team for next season, and definitely one of the challenges they'll have, which Adelaide always do, is to retain their younger players, because they pretty much get poached by other clubs around the league or clubs in Europe because they're so young when they're playing. I think there's like 5 or 6 players under the age of 20 that are in the starting lineup. So a big shout out to them for an incredible year that they've had. Unlucky not to get to the finals, but again, Johnny on the spot, Jamie McLaren was the difference with a goal in extra time to take them through to the final. If I just touch on Melbourne Victory. Now, Melbourne Victory, as I said, had this unbeaten run. I genuinely thought they were going to win the grand final. So to see them lose in the second leg, because they were 1-0 up in the first leg against Western United, to see them lose and go down 4-1 was a bit of a shock to me. They weren't really at the races on the day. They didn't look that energetic and lively like they had been in the previous weeks. I mean, they were dominating Sydney FC. They dominated Melbourne City in the Melbourne Derby. They were winning a lot of games 1-0 and they were drawing games, so they weren't losing. So they just had so many signs that would suggest that they could keep going. My only fear is that when you're on an unbeaten streak like that, it's got to come to an end. And I just had this feeling if I was Western United, this is the game that they could potentially lose it, and they did. They got, a bit of a romping as well, losing 4-1, which the game did open up, and Victory did take some risks, which opened up the dance floor a little bit, but it was just too hard to come back from that. So Western United, though, in some regards, they probably do deserve to be where they are because they were on top for most of the year. They've had an incredible year. They've got some really good players, really, really experienced players, which is why this is going to make for such an interesting game that have been, well-travelled across the A-League. Even some young players that, with high quality, that make some really big impact, like Wenzel Halls and Lockie Wells, as you saw on the weekend, with them getting both on the score sheet and impacting, the Melbourne Victory defence in a dangerous way. So I guess that comes to the grand final now, Melbourne City versus Western United. My views on this game, I really, really find it hard to see Melbourne City not winning. And here are my reasons why. And this is just focusing on Melbourne City, because if I was Melbourne City, I would just be focusing on them. And if I was Western United, they'll probably be focusing on them. But Melbourne City's just team on paper is so good. Last year, Melbourne City obviously did the double. They won the minor premiership and they won the grand final. But they won the grand final last year without Jamie McLaren, Connor Metcalfe and Curtis Good. Now, for me, they're their three best players. Obviously, Jamie's won his third Golden Boot in a row in the A-League, which is unbelievable. Connor Metcalfe probably has been Melbourne City's player of the season and also arguably one of the best players in the A-League. Like, he actually could win the Johnny Warren medal, which for those listening from a footy point of view is the equivalent of the Brownlow, because he's been that good. He's already inked a deal to go to St. Pauli in the second division in Germany, which is one of the most unique football clubs in the world, and he's going to be joining his Socceroos teammate in Jackson Irvine there. And then Curtis Good obviously wasn't there last year, who left-footed centre-back, and going off last year's form was the best defender in the league. This year it's probably shifted over to the Western United centre-back in Lacroix, but Curtis Good is so good. He's so strong, left-footed, so silky, very smart, reads the play well. They weren't in the team last year because they were away at Socceroo camp, and it was one of the contentious issues going into the finals that how is Melbourne City going to survive without them three? But they managed to win because they had such a good depth in the squad, such good young players like Kolakovsky and Tilio and Atkinson, who really made a difference in that final. So the fact that they won that last year, and then you add in those three players this year, on top of that, you add in Matthew Leckie and also Carl Jenkinson, who's played at Arsenal and in the Champions League, I really find it hard to believe that they're not going to win this game for those reasons. In saying that, these teams do match up somewhat quite well. They're very similar in regards to how they set up. Both play a 4-3-3. They both have a very experienced back four. So obviously from a Western United point of view, they have Josh Risdon, who's been in the league for God knows how long, probably 15 years now. Lacroix, who's been voted as a PFA Footballer of the Year, which is one of the biggest honours you can get in this country, who really looks like a very top defender, very calm at the back. The way he played against Melbourne Victory in a final was a sign of a really good player. I believe the other one is the Japanese centre-back. Let me get his name right because I don't want to get that wrong. What's his name? Imai. He's very good. I like him as well. He's not the tallest, but he seems to be very smart and moves well with Lacroix. And then obviously Ben Garuccio, left back. He seems young, but he's probably 26 or 27. He's been playing the A-League since he was 18. So you'd think that he would be able to make an impact in a game like this and be ready to perform on a big stage. Now, some of the midfield battle that I like going around this is Kilkenny. Now, Kilkenny, he's probably not the one that's going to put bums on seats, but he's a player that you want to have in your team because of how hard he works and what he gives to the team, his leadership. Obviously played a big career in England, has had Socceroos caps. So I do like what he can bring to the squad, and I think they're going to need a player like him to shut down Berenga and Metcalfe. Also, the other midfielder for Melbourne City on the weekend was Gamulka. I don't know if Gamulka's going to start, but we'll see what's going on there because he's a talented player to get into the Melbourne City lineup. For me, where the game's won and lost, though, is in the front three. So I know we have Salah, Mane and Firmino and also Diaz for Liverpool, but the equivalent of that in the A-League is Nabu, McLaren and Leckie. And you add on the bench there, you got Tilio and Kolakovsky, and Tilio's obviously a Socceroo now. So I feel like those three players, the firepower Melbourne City have, if they get a sniff on goal, players like Jamie McLaren, Matthew Leckie's played 15 years in Europe, has been to how many, 2-3 World Cups, won the Asian Cup, and Nabu is just an electric machine and kind of can be hot and cold, but in the big game seems to turn up. So I think it's going to be a very good game. I think John Aloisi, from a coaching standpoint at Western United, could potentially be coach of the year, along with Carl Viet at Melbourne Victory and obviously Popovic from Melbourne Victory. They're probably the three most notable coaches this season. John Aloisi, interestingly enough, said that he didn't think he would coach in Australia again because of the form of Brisbane and getting sacked up there. And that was obviously, the A-League is a small league, so getting second opportunities is tough. But he's definitely revived his coaching career with Western United. They do have a core group that's really performing and working for each other, and the team unity they have is pretty special. And we saw that against Melbourne Victory, how collective they were. And, you know, when goals were scored, the whole team, the keeper was there, the coaches were running on the field. Those sort of signs you do like to see from a squad, especially this time of the year. So I am very excited. The biggest notable loss for Western United, though, is you could say he's the best player in the league. I don't know if he's shown it yet, but from a pedigree point of view, is definitely the case in Alessandro Diamanti. Played at European Championships, played in the Serie A, played in the Premier League. Obviously, he had an arthroscopy cleaned out, I think, on his knee in April or May. So it's unlikely that he's going to feature, obviously, but he's a big loss. And the fact that they've still got there without him is a big win. Now, Prijovic for the strike force of Western United is showing form, scoring goals at the right time. So it could be closer than people think, but for all the reasons I've stated on Melbourne City, I just think they're too strong. So I don't know what you guys think, but definitely leave a comment for me on what you think the score will be. I still see Western United getting some goals in this game, but I just can't see Melbourne City not scoring more with their strike force. However, if there's a time you don't want to play Western United, it's now, from what I saw against Victory. So it's a big game, Braden. It's a big game, baby, in the A-League. Hopefully it's a packed out crowd. I think these two teams, the way they've gone all year, they deserve more people watching them. They deserve more fans. So if you're neutral, if you're new to the game, get down there, watch them, get on board with Western United. They do need more fans. They need to figure out their logistics of where they want to base their club, because I think that's impacting their growth. And then obviously Melbourne City, with their fans, will be there, no doubt. So big game, maybe 3-2 I'll go, Melbourne City. That's what I'll call. I hope it doesn't go to extra time. I'm sick of seeing games go to extra time, but I'm going to go 3-2. Jamie McLaren on the double and maybe Naboo for one, or even Tilio and Kolakovsky, one of them coming off the bench could really change the game. So we'll move over to the Champions League, lad. Now, this is a fucking big game, lads. I'm not going to lie. I'm so excited for this. I can't help myself, people. When I talk about Liverpool, I always put on a Scouser accent. I watch, to the day I die, I'll watch TikTok of Liverpool fans just in the streets, just talking about how good they think they are, how much they love Klopp, how much they love Salah and Mane and so forth. They are one of the most energetic and funniest group of people you'll ever come across, but super passionate about the game. Now, this is probably one of the hardest games to pick for many reasons. Liverpool, they're in a dynasty period without question with Jurgen Klopp. He's, for me, the best coach in the world. I say he's better than Pep because he doesn't spend the money that Pep does. He doesn't change his squad too much. He's making good players super players, like world-class players. Before he came, players like Jordan Henderson. Let's think of others. Jordan Henderson, Sadio Mane. Obviously, when he came, he turned him into a world-class striker. Mohamed Salah is now literally a Ballon d'Or candidate with Karim Benzema. Firmino's a good player, but I think the way Klopp uses him makes him a better player. And then other players like Naby Keita, Fabinho, Van Dijk is made into the best centre-back in the world. It's just, Alisson again, probably the best goalkeeper in the world. He's a scary good coach. I don't really know what it is about him. Tactically, he seems to be very switched on, but I think what he's really good at is how he works with people. He seems like a very happy and nice guy, but I think also behind the closed doors, he's super intelligent on the game, super meticulous, super analytical, and I think he would have an intimidation factor that would warrant respect from his players. Now, why Real Madrid would be a little bit more nervous, I guess, is because the way Liverpool finished the season. So they obviously lost recently the Premier League to Manchester City, but that I think is a positive for Liverpool because it's just made them more hungry. They won the FFA Cup. They were in contention prior to losing on the weekend to Man City in the Premier League for a quadruple, which is ridiculous how good their season's going. the other factor is that despite Real Madrid's experience, which we'll go into, they have won the Champions League. They won the Champions League a couple of years ago. And if you remember very clearly, in 2018, Klopp's first Champions League final with the club was an absolute fucking disaster. They lost to Real Madrid, 3-1, I believe it was. And it was the calamity of results of Loris Karius, which I think he threw the ball in the net, threw the ball to Benzema. Benzema scored a tap in, and then 5 minutes later, Gareth Bale scoring a bicycle kick that we'll probably never see anything like it again. So the challenges for Liverpool just coming into this is that Thiago's out. He hurt himself on the last game of the season, which is a massive blow. I don't know if he would have started, but again, like he's one of the best midfielders. He literally dictates the pace of play, the timing of play, which is exactly what Liverpool probably need against Real Madrid, because they're probably going to have more possession. And then when they don't have the ball, that's exactly what Real Madrid will do with Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, because they're just technical geniuses. They make the ball move more than they do. Fabinho's also, I believe he's in question, in doubt. Klopp says he's going to be fit, but he didn't play the last 3 games of the season. So again, a question mark on him, and he's been a huge part of their success. And the other one is Firmino. Firmino, like, for as good as he's been, what he came on and did in the last game of the season, like, he still doesn't look 100% fit. To be honest, he played rubbish. So I think they're going to go with Luis Diaz, Salah, and Mane as their top 3. Coming back into the midfield, you would think that they'll probably play with Keita, Fabinho, and who's the other one? There's one more that they probably will play with, obviously. Let me think. Oh, of course, the captain, Jordan Henderson. So those 3 will probably be the starting 3 in midfield, and then the back 4, this is where it gets a bit interesting. Obviously, Alexander-Arnold and Robinson as your fullbacks. Virgil van Dijk, I believe, is fit and is going to play, but the question mark is over who goes with Virgil van Dijk. Is it going to be Konate, or is it going to be Joel Matip? Now, Konate seems to be winning out the battle in the Champions League games. Joel Matip seems to be playing against some of the lesser teams, whether that's in the Premier League or in the Cup games. So it's probably going to be Konate, but Joel Matip is so good on the ball. He could play centre mid. He's that good on the ball. He's probably better than Van Dijk on the ball. I'm not going to say he's better than Arnold on the ball, but he's definitely one of the most complete centre backs in the Premier League in regards to playing out from the back and his sort of calm demeanour on the ball, which in a big final like this could be a difference maker. But from all reports, Konate is probably going to start. So the big battle between Real Madrid and Liverpool, again, comes back onto the forwards. And I know I said this for the A-League Grand Final, but the reason that is obviously the Salah, Mane, and Diaz effect. Now, for those that haven't watched much of Luis Diaz, he was signed in January. Everyone was kind of question marking, why the hell do we have, Luis Diaz coming in? Obviously, we've got more firepower, but we have the best 2 strikers in the world. We've got Bobby Firmino, we've got Divock Origi. But I think Klopp did that as insurance in case Salah left, in case Origi left, in case any of the other guys did leave, because a couple of them were coming out of contract. Now Diaz is arguably one of the most important players. I forgot to mention Diogo Jota, by the way, but Diaz has come in. Now if Salah left, all of a sudden, as big a loss as that would be, I wouldn't fear Liverpool's drop in the league that much, because Diaz is so fucking good. He's won them games off his own boot this season. He's going to have an electric battle going at Carvajal, who seems to be struggling in the fullback position for Real Madrid of late, and is obviously getting on in years in his legs. So I think that front 3 is going to be the difference maker. I see them scoring. They can score 3 or 4 goals between them in like 20 minutes. That's how good they are. They don't need much to get through this. They don't need much to sort of pressure and dominate you and be dangerous and clinical in front of goal. Salah, you give him 3 chances, he can have a hat-trick. Mane's electric as well with the ball and behind. You can't catch him, and he's always finishing goals. And then Diaz is just a very smart and technical and very quick player. So on the other end it's even more exciting, because at 34 years old, if he doesn't win the Ballon d'Or in Karim Benzema, then it's robbery again. Like Lewandowski got robbed, it'll be robbery for Benzema. He's won the Spanish La Liga with Real Madrid as the captain, and he's literally single-handedly probably got Real Madrid to the Champions League final in regards to his goals against PSG and Manchester City, which got them out of some really tough positions because they obviously came back in the second leg to knock out Man City, and Karim Benzema was at the double. So the challenge they have is that he has to play against Virgil van Dijk. And I don't really know how that's going to match up because Van Dijk, no one really does take him on because he's so strong and quick. Benzema's not really one to take players on. He's just a clinical finisher. He likes to drop off from the defenders and come and play as like a bit of a false nine and pick the ball up as a number 10. He's technical, he's quick, and he obviously has Valverde next to him and also Vinicius. Now, Vinicius is probably the other best player in the Real Madrid team. He's going to be going against Trent Alexander-Arnold. Alexander-Arnold's been questioned for his defensive strengths and his capabilities as a defender. I think he's a great right back in general. His defensive qualities are so good, but it's just because he's unbelievable going forward that he tends to suffer a little bit defensively because he can literally have 20 assists a season as a fullback going forward. And I think Robertson and Alexander-Arnold are kind of urged by Klopp to push forward. So that leaves a bit of vulnerability on the back four there because Alexander-Arnold's going to have to go 1v1 versus Vinicius Jr., which that could be a night from hell for anyone. He's so rapid, the Brazilian forward. Anyone would have him in their starting 11 around the world. He's so good. So he links up really well with Benzema. He's the type of guy that could score a couple goals as well. So it's going to be a very interesting game. The favourite in this, though, overall, is definitely Liverpool. By the bookmakers, they're making Liverpool the favourite. However, I just wouldn't write Real Madrid off because Real Madrid, they're going for their 5th Champions League in 9 years. Can you believe that? 5th Champions League in 9 fucking years. One club. They have some of their core players there, Luka Modric and Toni Kroos and Benzema, who for me are probably some of the best 3 players that I've ever watched growing up as a kid in regards to a midfield point of view. Casemiro, Modric and Kroos, they are aging in years, but they're so experienced, so smart. And people writ them off at the start of the year saying that they're going to be too old. They've literally won the Spanish La Liga and they're in the Champions League final. So everyone that said that is definitely eating their words. So the experience of those players, the experience of winning 4 Champions League over the last couple of years, or not couple of years, over the last sort of decade, and the experience of the great man, Carlo Ancelotti, the Italian manager who has won so many Champions Leagues, who has won so many domestic titles across all the parts of the world that he's coached. And I think he's one of the only coaches to have won domestic titles in England, Spain, Italy, and potentially could be Germany as well when he was at Bayern Munich. But I'd have to double check that. But he's one in a million. He's a superstar of a coach, extremely experienced, and he's the kind of guy that would very calmingly talk to his players to make a big difference. He doesn't need to rant and rave. He doesn't need to go over the top. He's calculated. He's smart. And I think his team will be coming into this game with the approach that they are the team that can win this. So it's going to make for an interesting game. I think Liverpool, they should win. They have to win. They're in a period, they have the better team, without doubt. They probably will have more of the possession because Real Madrid have been playing a more defensive model, which has been a little bit weird watching in the Champions League group stages and even some of the quarterfinal stuff. They tend to sit back a bit more and play in the counter with their quickness of Benzema and Vinicius, as we've shared. So, yeah, I'm tipping Liverpool to win this one. Again, I think it could be a bit of a goal fest. However, if you're a betting man, I wouldn't write off Real Madrid because Real Madrid have the experience, their form, winning everything that they've done. They've obviously probably had statistically as good a season as any team in Europe, and obviously their experience of winning a lot of Champions Leagues. So I'm going to go here 2-1 Liverpool. Mohamed Salah will get on the score sheet, probably a Sadio Mane goal, and maybe a goal from Vinicius or Benzema. So that's my tip, Liverpool fans. It's a fucking Scousers trophy to fucking lose this, you know what I mean? So you guys will be fucking burning, man, if you don't fucking win this. And Real Madrid will fucking, literally, this is probably one of their last chances to win a Champions League of this magnitude unless they start signing some players, because I can't see Carvajal, Kroos, Modric. I'm not going to write Benzema off. But they do have a bit of an aging squad, and they're going to probably go through a little period of transformation or subtle transformation, whereas Liverpool are in the sweet spot, as we say in Australia, to win trophies. So that's all we've got for today, guys. That's my overview on the A-League and the Champions League final. It's going to be a belter. A-League, as I said, Melbourne City to win. Be surprised. Liverpool to win the Champions League again, but probably Real Madrid. They have the potential to win this. It wouldn't surprise me if Real Madrid won this, and I probably in some ways do hope they do, because I think they probably deserve it the way they've played throughout the Champions League and the heart and spirit they've showed. So if you guys have enjoyed this mini, let us know. If you guys want me to keep talking about soccer, if there's any way, I think next time maybe we'll get some fan questions in definitely prior to this and talk through them. But let us know what you guys thought of this. The Champions League preview and A-League Grand Final preview. It's a big week in football. And we hope you enjoyed this, guys. So we'll see you next week on the Unlaced podcast. Thank you.